15 days after delivering my daughter, my husband secretly turned my swollen, stitched-up body into a joke for his friends. My name is Lila Hart. I'm 31 years old, and just over 2 weeks ago, I pushed a tiny, furious little girl into this world after 20 hours of labor. I still walk like I'm made of glass. I still flinch every time I sit down. And yet, when I hear my daughter breathe in her sleep, none of that seems to matter. For years, I pictured this moment with my husband, Ethan. We planned everything, or so I thought. Baby names, paint colors, car seats, and stroller brands we couldn't even afford. We talked about how we'd tag-team diaper changes like some unstoppable duo. We didn't stumble into pregnancy. We fought for it. 3 years of trying. 2 miscarriages. A calendar filled with temperature charts, lab visits, medications with names I still can't pronounce. When the test finally showed 2 pink lines, we both cried on the bathroom floor, clutching each other like survivors. Back then, I believed nothing could ever break us again. I was wrong. In my 3rd trimester, things got complicated. My ankles ballooned. My blood pressure climbed. The doctors started throwing around scary words and monitoring me like a ticking bomb. I gained 50 pounds in what felt like a single month. I couldn't see my own toes, let alone feel attractive. Ethan was there physically. He drove me to appointments, carried grocery bags, rubbed my back when cramps woke me at 3 a.m. But there was something in his eyes, an impatience, a shudder coming down. Every time I caught my reflection and made a joke about looking like a whale, he would just say, "You're fine, babe," without really looking at me. Was I imagining that distance? Or did my body changing mean our whole life was changing too? Labor was a blur of fluorescent lights and beeping machines. I remember the doctor's calm but not calm voice. I remember Ethan pacing, scrolling on his phone, saying he was updating our families. My heart pounded so loudly, I thought it might drown out the babies. When they finally placed my daughter on my chest, slick and loud and furious, the world shrank to the size of her tiny fist wrapped around my finger. In that moment, I thought, everything was worth it. Every injection, every loss, every fear. No one tells you that the real heartbreak might not happen in the delivery room. It might hit you in the bathroom a few nights later while you're wrapped in a cheap towel, leaking milk and blood and tears. The first weeks at home were a hurricane. Cluster feeding, endless crying, night and day melting into each other like spilled ink. I forgot what my own voice sounded like when I wasn't shushing someone. Ethan said he was exhausted too. He stayed late at work more often. He'd step outside to take calls that always seemed too long for work emergencies. He stopped touching me, even in small ways. No hand on my back when he passed behind me. No kiss on the forehead goodnight. Is something wrong? I asked one night as I bounced the baby on an exercise ball, desperate to get her to sleep. He sighed. Nothing's wrong, Lila. I'm just stressed. We have a baby now. It's a lot. It was a reasonable answer, but his eyes didn't match his words. Have you ever felt the floor start to tilt under you before anything actually moves? That's what those weeks felt like. One night, after my daughter finally gave in to sleep, I crept into the shower. It was the first hot shower I'd had in what felt like days, not the rushed rinse and run kind. The steam wrapped around me, and for a few minutes, I let myself pretend I was just a woman again, not a feeding machine with a sore body and cracked nipples. When I stepped out, balancing on one sore foot, towel wrapped hastily around me, I noticed the door was open a crack. Through the gap, I saw Ethan standing there, phone raised. The shutter sound snapped through the humid air. I froze. He jerked back like a kid caught stealing. Lila, hey. He stammered, hiding the screen against his chest. My heart tried to claw its way out of my throat. Ethan, did you just take a picture of me? He chuckled, that nervous laugh I had started to hate without knowing why. Relax. I just wanted a picture to remember this time. You know, before intimacy is off the table for a while. There it was. Not tenderness. Not admiration. Curiosity, mixed with something else I couldn't name yet. You know I'm not comfortable with that, I said quietly. Delete it. Now. In front of me. He rolled his eyes, but his fingers moved quickly across the screen. There. Gone. Happy, he said, turning the phone to show me his empty camera roll. It looked clean. Too clean. I stepped past him, feeling my cheeks burn, but not for modesty. Something inside me vibrated with unease, like a glass about to crack. Am I overreacting? I wondered as I dressed in the dark. Or did I just watch my husband lie to my face and expect me to swallow it? I tried to sleep that night, but each time I closed my eyes, I saw the rectangle of his phone aimed at my vulnerable body. My skin crawled. Beside me, he snored like a man with a clear conscience. By morning, I had convinced myself to let it go. New parents are tired. Hormones are wild. I didn't want to be the crazy postpartum wife snooping through her husband's phone. But sometimes your gut refuses to be politely quiet. The next day, Ethan hopped in the shower after dinner. His phone charged on the nightstand, face up unlocked. My heart started pounding so loudly, I could barely hear the shower running down the hall. You don't plan the moment you cross a line. You just find yourself standing on the other side, wondering how you got there. My fingers moved before my brain finished its argument. I picked up the phone. First, I checked the photos. Nothing. No picture of me stepping out of the shower. Nothing in the recently deleted folder either. That should have calmed me. It didn't. I opened his messaging app. Most threads were short, boring, work-related. A few had only a single message, like entire conversations had been wiped. Then I saw a group chat name I recognized from stories, the Wolves. His college friends. I tapped it open. If you've ever had the wind knocked out of you, you know that blind, gasping silence before the pain hits. That's what reading those messages felt like. There I was, my postpartum body captured from the bathroom doorway, towels slipping, my belly deflated and marked, breasts heavy and sore, eyes tired and unfocused, like a stranger living inside my skin. The photo sat right in the middle of the chat, sent at 10:42 p.m. the night before. Underneath it, Ethan had typed, "Look what 9 months did to her." I read that line 3 times, hoping I'd misunderstood. But there was no other way to take it. His friends responded with emojis, crude comments, and jokes about trading in models. Each word sliced a new line into what I thought was safe ground. Then I saw a reply from a contact I didn't know well. Username, Jade. Tiny profile picture. Dark curly hair, red lipstick, 2 familiar eyes. Now she was joking about my destroyed self-esteem like she lived in our house too. My hands shook so badly, I had to put the phone down for a minute. The baby stirred in her bassinet, making those soft squeaks that usually melted my heart. Right then, they were the only thing tethering me to reality. I picked the phone back up. If I stopped reading, I could still pretend this was misunderstanding, right? But I'm the kind of person who presses bruises to see how deep they go. I scrolled further. The chat went back weeks. Teasing. Subtle complaints about me being emotional. Jokes about how Ethan's life was over now that he was a dad. And threaded among them, little references to Jade. Late night spreadsheets with Jay. Lunch with my favorite coworker. Better company at the office than at home, TBH. I don't remember sitting down, but suddenly I was on the edge of the bed, gripping the phone so hard my knuckles went white. A thought slid into my mind with horrible clarity. This isn't just cruelty. This is betrayal. I took screenshots. All of them. The photo, the messages, the timestamps, the emojis that hurt more than actual words. I emailed them to myself, to a hidden folder labeled with something mundane. Not because I planned a revenge plot, because I needed proof that I hadn't imagined any of this. When he came out of the shower, hair damp, towel around his waist, he smiled at me. "Hey, how's my girl?" he asked, kissing the baby's forehead. "Which one?" I almost said. Instead, I forced my lips into something that might have passed for a smile and handed our daughter over. I didn't confront him that day, or the next, or the next. Instead, I watched. I listened. I collected invisible puzzle pieces. He started working late more often. He turned his phone face down on the table. He guarded it like it contained state secrets instead of memes and cheap flirtation. One evening, while he chopped vegetables for dinner, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it with a small, unconscious smile. The lock screen preview flashed quickly, but I caught just enough. Jade. Same room as last time? My stomach dropped. Later that week, he left for a client drinks night. Left early, new shirt, unfamiliar cologne lingering behind him. I fed the baby, burped her, and rocked her to sleep, a sense of unreality humming under my skin. When the house was finally silent, I opened my email, pulled up the screenshots again, and stared at my own humiliated body on the screen. How do you stay in a marriage after seeing your most vulnerable moment turned into a comedy bit between your husband and his friends? How do you look into the eyes of the man who pressed send? The answer settled in slowly, like dusk. You don't. The next afternoon, he came home early, whistling as he set his keys on the counter. He walked into the kitchen where I was sterilizing bottles. "Hey, I got out of a meeting early. Want me to take the baby so you can nap?" he offered. My hands kept moving because if they stopped, I wasn't sure what I'd do. "Ethan," I said, my voice steady in a way that surprised me. "How long have you been sleeping with Jade?" The knife in his hand paused midair. His head snapped up. "What? How?" "Long," I repeated, turning to face him. His jaw clenched. His eyes darted sideways for just a second. "I have no idea what you're talking about. Are you serious right now?" "Lila, you need sleep." There it was, the gaslighting I had quietly feared. "Don't insult me," I said, pulling my phone from my pocket. I opened my email, clicked one of the screenshots, and held it out to him. The photo of me, half naked and half broken, stared back at both of us. Beneath it, his own caption and Jade's suggestive replies glared like neon signs. Color drained from his face. He dropped the knife onto the cutting board with a dull thud. "Lila, don't bother saying it's out of context." I cut in. "I've read the context. Weeks of it." For a moment, the room filled with a thick, ugly silence. Then his shoulders slumped, as if lying required more energy than he had left. "Fine," he muttered. "Yes. Jade and it's been a few months." I didn't cry. Not then. Something inside me went very, very still. "I needed something," he added quickly, words tumbling out now that the dam had cracked. You're always tired. We haven't touched in forever. It's like you disappeared into being a mom. I'm a man, Lila. I have needs. For a second, I thought I might actually laugh because the absurdity was almost comical. My body was torn open to bring his child into the world, and he was framing his cheating as some tragic necessity. You took a picture of me, broken, bleeding, and trying to heal, and sent it to your friends to laugh at, I said quietly. And you want to talk about your needs? He flinched. I was just venting. They're my friends. I didn't mean to humiliate me. I finished. Because you succeeded spectacularly. I studied his face then, really looked at him. The boy I had loved at 19 was gone. In his place stood a man who thought betrayal was something you could explain away with stress and hormones. I want a divorce, I said. His head jerked back. What? Whoa, whoa, whoa. Don't be dramatic. People come back from worse than this. Maybe they do, I replied. I'm not people. He stared at me, searching my face for the girl who used to fold every time he looked sad. She wasn't there. Think about our daughter, he tried again. You want her parents to split up over one mistake? One mistake. I repeated softly. This wasn't a slip. This was a choice you made over and over, message after message, night after night. He opened his mouth to argue, then shut it again. He looked small for the first time. I'm calling a lawyer, I said, turning back to the sink because if I kept looking at him, I might crumble. You might want to call one too. He slept in the guest room that night. The next day, he moved out for a while, supposedly to give me space. In reality, he moved into Jade's apartment 2 neighborhoods away. He didn't fight for custody. He didn't beg to attend pediatric appointments. He agreed to child support minimums like he was consenting to a monthly subscription he never used. Watching him detach from our daughter so easily hurt more than any of his words ever could. It proved something I had been fighting deep down. He hadn't just fallen out of love with me. He had abandoned the family he helped create. My mother drove 3 hours the day I signed the divorce papers and brought me back to the house I grew up in. She didn't ask for details. She just made me tea, took the baby out of my arms when my stitches ached, and let me sob into her bathrobe until I ran out of tears. I felt like a failure, not just as a wife, but as a woman. Shouldn't I have seen this coming? Shouldn't I have been enough to stop it? Postpartum depression didn't knock politely. It kicked the door open. Nights bled into mornings where I stared at my daughter and whispered, I'm sorry, without knowing exactly what I was apologizing for. Some days, I functioned on autopilot, changing diapers, sterilizing bottles, answering work emails from my old job as if my heart hadn't shattered. Other days, my mother would gently take my daughter from my arms and say, Go lie down, honey, because my hands were shaking too hard. I started therapy when my daughter was 4 months old. My therapist's office smelled like lavender and old books. For weeks, I sat there insisting I was fine, while tears soaked Kleenex after Kleenex. Why didn't you burn it all down? She asked once gently. Why not send those screenshots to everyone he knows? It was a tempting thought, but even in my darkest moments, something held me back. I don't want to become what hurt me, I finally said. I don't want to be the woman defined by his ugliness. Instead of plotting revenge, I chose something quiet and unglamorous: survival. I learned how to feed my daughter with one hand and pay bills online with the other. I updated my resume during nap times. I went for short, shaky walks around the block, pushing the stroller like a lifeline. At 8 months postpartum, an accounting firm in the city offered me a junior position with flexible hours. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't what I'd once dreamed of, but it was mine. My mother watched the baby while I took the train into town. That first day, I sat in the office bathroom staring at my reflection. Same eyes. New woman. Work became a strange kind of therapy. Numbers made sense. They lined up. They obeyed rules. Unlike my marriage. On my way home from work one evening, I passed a small gym with big windows. Inside, people moved their bodies with purpose, lifting, stretching, sweating. I hesitated at the doorway, still carrying baby weight, still wearing the shame of Ethan's photo, like a second skin. What if they stared? What if I couldn't keep up? Then a thought floated to the surface. He already took my body and turned it into a joke. Why should I let that be the final word? I went inside and signed up for the cheapest membership. The first few weeks, I wanted to quit every other day. My lungs burned. My legs ached. My reflection in the mirrors made me flinch. But something kept me going. The idea that every drop of sweat washed off one more word from that cruel group chat. I didn't transform overnight. I didn't turn into some fitness influencer with abs you could grate cheese on. But little by little, I felt stronger. One morning, I stepped out of the shower and caught my reflection again. Same stretch marks. Same scar. But my shoulders stood taller. My eyes looked back with something I hadn't seen in years. Respect. Healing started the day I decided my body was not an apology. Around that time, Ethan called. For the first time in almost a year. I almost let it go to voicemail. Curiosity got the better of me. Hello. His voice was softer than I remembered. Hey, Lila. How are you? How's our girl? Our girl. The phrase made my jaw clench. He hadn't visited once since the divorce finalized. His contributions started and ended with automatic bank transfers. She's fine, I answered. Growing. Talking. Loving dinosaurs. He chuckled like he was entitled to that image. That's great. Listen, I've been doing a lot of thinking. Things with Jade, they're not what I thought. I made mistakes. Maybe we could start fresh? For the family? Once upon a time, that offer would have lit up every lonely corner of me. Back then, I believed any scrap of attention from him was better than none. Now, all I felt was a tired sort of pity. Ethan, I said, my voice calmer than I expected. This family already started fresh. Without you. He bristled. Come on, Lila. Don't be like that. People change. I know, I replied. I did. There was a pause on the line, like he had finally realized the girl who cried over his texts no longer lived here. I forgave you for myself, I added. But forgiveness doesn't mean access. You lost that when you hit send on that photo. He tried one more time, the old whine slipping back into his tone. So that's it? After everything we've been through? Yes, I said simply and hung up. I expected to shake afterward. I didn't. I just felt free. That, I realized later, was my revenge. Not public humiliation. Not forwarding screenshots to his boss or blasting him on social media. My revenge was living a life where his approval meant nothing. Years moved quietly after that, marked not by drama, but by ordinary miracles. My daughter, Mia, took her first steps across my mother's living room. She started preschool, clinging to my hand one minute and running toward the playground the next. We celebrated small holidays with big enthusiasm. I rebuilt my savings. I bought a little townhouse with squeaky floors and too few closets, but the key was mine. We painted Mia's room yellow. She insisted on dinosaur stickers on every wall. I kept going to the gym, not to punish my body, but to thank it. I learned to cook meals that weren't just whatever was closest and fastest. I finally slept through the night. Sometimes. I wasn't searching for new love. I barely had time to search for my own clean socks. But life has a way of nudging open doors when you're busy hammering other things back together. It happened on a Tuesday evening at Mia's kindergarten open house. The classroom buzzed with chatter, parents comparing lunchbox strategies, kids dragging them around to show off drawings. I was kneeling beside Mia's cubby when a small voice said, "Hi, I'm Theo. I sit next to Mia." I looked up and saw a little boy with a missing front tooth grinning proudly. Behind him stood a man holding a dinosaur backpack, eyes kind, shoulders a bit slouched like mine at the end of a long day. "I'm Daniel," he said, offering a hand.
Tazat?
We talked about the teacher, about the chaos of morning drop-offs, about how our kids both refused to wear matching socks. His wedding ring finger was bare. He mentioned quietly that he had been raising Theo on his own since he was 2. There were no sparks or violins in that moment, just a strange sense of recognizing another survivor. Over the next few months, we bumped into each other often. At school pickup, at the grocery store, at the park where our kids argued passionately about which dinosaur would win in a fight. One day, while the kids raced to the swings, he turned to me and said, "Would you ever want to grab coffee sometime?" Just two tired parents talking about things other than dinosaurs. I hesitated. My heart, still stitched in places, kicked against my ribs. "Coffee sounds nice," I heard myself say. We met at a small cafe, with chipped mugs and really good cinnamon rolls. Daniel talked about his work as a paramedic, about long nights and hard calls. I told him about spreadsheets, about learning to love the quiet certainty of numbers. We swapped stories about our kids, laughing at their weird phrasing and unstoppable curiosity. He didn't ask about Ethan immediately. When he eventually did, he listened without trying to fix anything or offer platitudes. "I'm sorry that happened to you," he said simply. "You deserved better." No one had said those words in exactly that way before. They lodged softly in my chest like seeds. We took it slow. So slow that for a while, I wasn't sure it was anything at all. He never pushed. He never complained when I said I needed to be home by bedtime. One evening, as the kids built a pillow fort in my living room, I watched Daniel lying on the floor, letting them pile cushions on top of him. Mia's laughter rang through the room, bright and unburdened. She scrambled onto his chest and said, "You're like my extra grown-up." I froze. This was dangerous territory. But Daniel just smiled up at her and replied, "I'll be whatever you need me to be, kiddo."
No declarations.
No pressure. Just presence. Later, as we stacked pillows back in their places, he caught my eye. "You okay?" he asked. "I think so," I said. For the first time in a long time. Love with him didn't feel like fireworks. It felt like a warm house on a cold night, like a coat someone drapes over your shoulders without a word. Real love doesn't rescue you. It walks beside you while you rescue yourself. Years after that first coffee, I stood in front of a different mirror, wearing a simple dress that didn't hide my scars because I no longer felt like they needed hiding. Mia, the flower girl with a plastic dinosaur clipped to her bouquet, peeked in and said, "Mom, You look like a superhero. I smiled. I feel like one, I answered, and for once I meant it. Daniel and I married in a small ceremony in my mother's backyard. No big white dress.
No fancy venue.
Just people who had watched us crumble and rebuild, cheering quietly from lawn chairs. Ethan wasn't there, of course. He hadn't called in years. He hadn't remembered birthdays or holidays or the first time Mia lost a tooth. Sometimes people ask me if I hate him, if I want him to suffer. The truth is, I don't. Hatred would mean he still mattered enough to take up space in my heart. He doesn't. One day, while organizing old files on my laptop, I stumbled across the folder where I'd saved the screenshots from his group chat. The photo, the comments, the proof of how little he valued me. For a moment, my breath caught. Not from pain this time, but from recognition. That woman in the photo, naked, exhausted, filled with a love she didn't yet know would have to withstand so much. She looked fragile, but she was the strongest version of me I had ever been. She didn't know it yet, but she would keep an entire world alive while hers fell apart. I hovered my mouse over the file. Then I clicked delete.
No ceremony.
No speech. Just a quiet decision. This no longer defines me. Today, my house is small and always a little messy. There are dinosaur toys in the hallway and math worksheets on the kitchen table. Daniel's boots sit by the door beside Mia's glittery sneakers. We aren't perfect. We argue sometimes about bedtimes and budgets. We get tired and say things we later apologize for. But never once has he made my pain into a punchline. Never once has he used my vulnerability as entertainment. I tell Mia the truth in age-appropriate pieces when she asks why she doesn't see the man whose DNA she carries. I chose people who choose you back, I say. That's what a family is. If I could travel back and speak to the version of myself who discovered that horrible photo for the first time, sobbing quietly in a dark bedroom, I'd whisper this.
Hold on.
Not for him. For you. You will not just survive this. You will rewrite your whole life. And one day, you will stand in front of a mirror, look at every scar, every curve, every line, and say, "Thank you for staying." Because the greatest revenge is not ruining someone else's life. It's refusing to let them ruin yours. If this story reached a hurting part of you, I hope you remember this. You are not the shame someone else tried to throw on your shoulders. You are every brave step you take away from what broke you. If my journey resonated with you, please tap like so this video can find more people who need it, and consider subscribing to Winds of Thought for more stories like this. Wherever you are listening from, may you find the courage to choose yourself, even when it feels impossible. That's where your new life quietly begins.